Hi, welcome back. For all dog lovers, I have today a dog's eye because I love eyes and I am sure you also love drawing eyes, and it is so an easy starting point. If you would like to bring your animals to life on paper, to start with the eyes. I always start with the eyes in my portrait because I like to see how my animal starts to live on paper and how I can bring in their personality into the portrait. You know, the eyes are the gates to the soul of the animal, and it is so fun to draw eyes. If you are interested in more eye lessons, I have here a course, a mini eye drawing course. Just check it out. And now I show you how to draw a beautiful dog's eye. I explain you every step in detail. Let's start with the outline. So first sketch in the outline of the dog's eye with a black pastel pencil. Draw here forwards and backwards with very little pressure, that you always are also able to use a knited eraser and remove these lines, and just sketch in the iris. So always have a good look to the reference photo. So have a good look at the reference photo and see what you can draw, what lines are important. You don't have to draw every line for the sketch, but the most important outlines, and sketch that in. You can definitely do that freehand. It is fun to do it freehand here and to train your eyes. Drawing freehand is a method for your sketch to practice, to train your eyes, to get the proportions right. And for eye studies, that's definitely a nice possibility to sketch it in freehand. Here I add then the black part of the pupil. I'm working with a black pit pastel pencil here. Most of the times I use the pit pastel pencils from Faber-Castell. Sometimes also Cap with Yellows from Stabilo are nice to use. Here I then plot in the blue for the highlight and a bit white highlight. You see here light reflections on top of the sky and some clouds, and the reflection of the sun. Here I go over the lower part again and make the eyelid a bit broader. We draw the eyelid and then there is a light reflection on top. So observe your reference photo well. If you have the distances correct and the outlines drawn correct. And so then we can start blending the black with the paper stamp. For blending, I use different tools like blending stamps, paper stamp. These are paper stamps, and then cotton swabs. These are these Q-tips. There are broader ones and thinner ones available, and you can also use sponges for blending, but for smaller parts in animal portraits, paper stamps and cotton swabs are really useful. Yes, and then I have here blended over the black, and now start with an underpainting with a light yellow and ivory color here. Plot that in for the underpainting, and then I blend it again. Here I have a bit blue on the paper stamp, but that does not matter because we go over with green tones anyways. Normally I keep the paper stamp clean or clean it with a knife. And here it mixes a little bit bluish, yellow, so greenish underpainting. That's a nice to have here because we draw a green dog's eye. It's the eye of a big bulldog, and here I plot in an olive green a bit around the edges. The edges of eyes are always darker, so darken down the edges so that your eye starts to pop and you create a 3D effect. And then blend over gently, make this base layer with ivory and green smooth. Then I take 199 the black. I'm so used to say the colors. In my drawing lessons, in my drawing school, the membership Animal Art Club, our online drawing community, and in my lessons there, I always also say and explain every step I do really in real time, explain every color, that you can make a color swatch and then choose exactly the same pencils. So in my lessons I really try to explain every detail step by step, and that you find it logical and you understand the way we are building up the layers and how you can bring your animals to life on paper really easily. There are 7 pillars that are really important in animal portraits. My 7 pillars are use the right material, make an accurate sketch, so draw the outlines really right and get in right proportions. Then layering and blending is really important, and the pressure you're using is one pillar, and also lights and shadows, and finally work with patience. So patience, persistence and practice is the key, and very important, believe in yourself that you can do that, because I believe everybody can draw if you want to. So self-belief is a very important part. It looks a little bit difficult at the beginning, but with step-by-step explanations, everything comes together easily. Here I have added more green tones, a little bit blue over the iris, and I blend then always over with the paper stamp. Blue for the sky, for the highlights, and buff in the upper area of the dog's eye. Sometimes you see clouds, sometimes you see other little things, mountains and so on in the dog's eye. Here I blend over with the blue pastel pencil, the light blue, and bringing different values into the dog's eye. Here's some little dots. And so sorry, I see that the camera is zooming in sometimes a little bit. Not sure why that happened in the video. Normally everything is crisp and sharp, so don't let it disturb you. Of sometimes the bad picture, I apologize, but it becomes sharp then quickly. So I add then also some orange ochre tones in the eye. So bring in all the colors you can see on the reference photo. Add a thin layer of an ochre, an orange ochre tone. Burnt ochre, for example, and then I darken down here the corner, the eye corner, and also the eyelids again, the eye corner on the right, and the dark part, the pupil we see inside the eye. Draw some little lines downwards, darken down the shadow areas. That's always important to bring in contrast. Darken down the shadow areas, and then I also bring in some more highlights over the eyeball on top with a light yellow. So with a creamy yellow, some little dots, strokes, fine details. Draw everything you can see on the reference photo. Here are some light reflections in the inner eye corner, and then we have skin colors. I used some flesh colors here, light flesh and a cinnamon, and also a violet, red, so it's caput mortuum, and blend these layers together. Blend these layers carefully together, and then go over the outlines and the lines between with black. Darken down the black and go in with black again. Always work with a very light hand, so always use very little pressure. You can go over and over again over the lines, but don't press too much. When your paper is saturated, it's too late to draw layers, and your lines will start to smear and smudge. So pastel matte paper from Clairefontaine that I'm using here allows allows many layers, and you can apply a lot of pastel pigment. At some point, every paper is saturated, so to work with light pressure is really key, that you just apply a thin layer with each layer you draw, and don't oversaturate your paper. Oversaturation means that the spaces in the paper, so you can imagine that so that the paper has little mountains and valleys, and with each layer you are drawing, you put in pastel pigment into these spaces, and you fill out these spaces with each layer. And at some point then, after 10 layers maybe, for example, it is full of pastel pigment and you cannot draw over, your lines will start to smear and smudge and everything becomes muddy, and it's a muddy feeling. So really keep here an eye on it, that you work with light pressure. Then I draw also a little bit fur around this pitbull eye here with gray. It's similar, nearly a similar color to the dark gray paper from from Clairefontaine. So I blend that gray, it's a middle gray tone, and blend here also the black together with the gray, so create some nice soft transitions. Always make sure that you blend here gently also black with the gray, so that you have no hard edges, and draw a bit fur here on top of the gray underpainting. So draw a shadow layer, start building up the fur with lines that are always following the fur direction. Again, have a good look at your reference photo in what direction the fur is growing, and draw that in. It's a bit like a sketch, the first layer, use it for sketching in the fur direction. We draw here the first layer in the fur with a shadow color, in that case the black, and let these hairs overlap. Rotate your pencil and draw fine thin lines. This is the first layer in fur. You need also more layers for fur for sure. Building up the fur in more layers is really crucial to draw realistically. Then I blend it over with a paper stamp and bring in now a bit caput mortuum, so a little bit of a violet brown, violet red tone around the eye. It's a bit, the skin is a bit visible here, and it's so a bit brown reddish around the eye. Plotting in a bit of the caput mortuum, and then we add finer, lighter lines with a light gray pencil here over the layers. So teeny tiny little light gray hairs. As the next layer, let them cross and overlap, and draw them also in different length. Don't forget to draw some eyelashes. So eyelashes also are very important for sure when you're drawing eyes. Let these lines cross. Draw them also in different length, not always the same length. Yes, and add a layer with these fine light gray hairs here. Let them overlap and cross. Draw them into the background color, into surrounded areas. Move the pencil here carefully over, forward and backwards. Also use different amount of pressure for finer lines, little pressure, and for larger lines, a bit more pressure. Yes, and add some more layers here on top, some longer hairs, and then I go also in again with the black. Darken down the shadows, draw some darker shadow lines between the fur layers we have drawn already to bring in more details. And the more layering you are doing, so the more layers you draw, the better for sure your fur rendering will then become. And don't forget to blend over a little bit, and it's finished. Okay, isn't it stunning to draw an eye or to bringing these eyes to life on paper, how you see if you add a bit shadow and some highlights, how they start to sparkle. Would you like to draw more of them, in-depth and detailed drawing lessons? I have a special mini eye drawing course here for you. Check it out, you find the link here, maybe you would like to learn more. And here is another video that might be interesting for you. Don't forget to subscribe. I hope I see you in the next video here on my channel. Bye bye, enjoy drawing.